Magic is a true story. It's my story. About when I was about 18 years old and I set off around the world to find out the truth about magic. I wanted to know what bottled the genies and set magic carpets flying. This question was preying on my mind when I set off to travel the world. I wanted more and I went out to find it. Now, true stories can sometimes be let down by the reality that they serve. Magic isn't one of them. True stories are naturally funny, if you're brave enough, just to be honest. It always makes for good comedy, especially if you're an 18-year-old boy escaping suburban Canberra. Now, the pivot of my story was when I met Russ Focus, a Don Juan-like character and a Rastafarian mystic who was also mastering Kung Fu. He was difficult and he was uncompromising, and a man who truly believed in the virtues of a simple life living in poverty and of the wrongs of Western consumerism. So this conversation, which I'm about to read, took place the evening of the very first night that I met Russ Focus. High as I was also concerned about mosquitoes. Have you got a mosquito coil or lotion anywhere? Blessed be Jah, for he is God of all comfort. You'll be safe and comfort in the house of the Rastafari. Mosquitoes don't visit me, so they won't visit you. Belize isn't called the Mosquito Coast for nothing. The windless Caribbean coast with its lagoons, sweetwater creeks and jungles makes a perfect habitat for the country's namesake insect. But Focus was right. Come dusk, they swarmed everywhere except, mysteriously, around Focus's house. But there was a lot more that was incredible about this little Rastafarian home, aside from just a marked absence of mosquitoes. Focus's house wasn't on stilts like all the other houses by the river. Rather, his place was under them. It was built on the lowest ground on the banks of Stan Creek, which flooded when I arrived and only got deeper while I was there. Inexplicably, Focus's place always remained dry, even when you could wade down the main street. I tried to analyse the reason. Perhaps some bizarre eddy of wind repelled the mosquitoes and kept the high water low. But there was no wind. I asked Focus. He answered with a riddle that sounded like a mixture of biblical references, Rastafarian jargon and outlandish claims. Jah sends the rains from above and drew I out of the waters. You say magic because you understand. Now you must learn to overstand. The shepherd, he looks after his sheep, and you are a guest in the house of the Rastafari. Nature herself will bow down to the King of Kings, Rastafari, Jah Almighty. Are you saying that your place is dry, and that there are no mozzies because God lives here? Don't go and bear false witness. God is everywhere, man, but Jah is before the throne of God. And Jah is the prophet, Jah is the judge, and Jah is the shepherd. It's his words that comes to pass, and by the might of God who dwells in the living man. This is Rastafari and I. This is the living God. Can't you see? But I really couldn't. So I missed a few lessons, but over time I started to overstand Focus, and eventually I started practicing magic myself. People love both magic and science for the same reason. Both are enablers. Both offer power and solutions to impossible problems. But what people don't realize is that something shifts when people discover the instability that magic brings to existence. It shatters the world that's been built on predictability and logic. Suddenly the material, the countable, the definable, is pulled from underfoot by the capricious, the slippery, the egocentric nature of the mind. In that respect, magic is really the opposite of science, which remains dispassionate and impartial no matter what. The laws of motion don't change just because the scientist gets a speeding fine. But in the face of magic, those laws don't seem to apply. So when a person comes across magic for the first time, he has to choose how to tackle this unpredictable dimension of reality. And I embraced it with radical trust, like focus. I decided to make no compromises. If focus could find the truth by being honest and find meaning by never making any concessions to his integrity, I wouldn't either. Or at least I'd die trying. And as it turns out, simple honesty is an extreme path, especially when intermixed with magic. And the possibility that I might die trying was very, very real. My very own actions brought me to death's door time and time again. Chapter 1 of Magic starts when I was being forced, at gunpoint, to walk barefoot and without water into the vast no man's land of the Sahara Desert. I no longer feel any anguish about the unknown. I know the dangers that face me now. They're all around, 360 degrees of extreme peril, I reflected, while staring out at the sands around me, clutching at my only crutch, my tarot cards. And on I went through minefields, to end up in a series of African prisons, and eventually even to be sold as a slave. My path had no safety net. I didn't want one. I, like a reader myself, just wanted to know what was going to happen next. Now, on the subject of readers, I'm often asked about who would want to read my book, who my book is for, and it's not really about an age group or a gender or anything like that. My story is a good story for anyone who likes stories, or anyone who needs a sense of the miraculous in the world around them. Anyone who feels jaded by the ordinariness of the life that they've been served up. I once noticed that a student of mine was looking a little depressed and looking like he could do with a bit of magic. And so I gave him an early manuscript of my book, and about 2 years later, he and 5 friends, all of whom had read the book, came back to me. They knocked on my office door and they had all of these stories that each of them started a journey in India, and they'd all woven their ways differently. Some went north and some went south. They went through Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran and Libya and Albania and Turkey and all sorts of wonderful places, and they had stories worthy of telling themselves by the end of it. Inside us all, there is somebody who hasn't been worn down by the dense materiality of laws and rules and restrictions and yearns for a break. And if you're one of those people, this book's for you. Come and take the journey with me. Come and join my students, and come and find a place that's wide and expansive, like the Sahara Desert.